I think the biggest improvement you could make to your fretboard visualization today would be to practice learning to see what it looks like to descend in pitch from a higher note down to an intervallic function or a scale degree that's lower in pitch. We're going to talk all about this in today's mini lesson, what it is, why it's so powerful, and some tips on how to practice it. But before we get into it, I just want to say my name's David Beebe. Welcome back to the channel if you're returning, and if you're new, thanks for stopping by. I create guitar-related videos on all sorts of things, so lessons, licks, tones, gear, and yeah, if you enjoy the video and you like what you see, maybe think about hitting that subscribe button. It would be much appreciated. I also make an app called Solo that is a practice tool for working on many of the things that we're going to talk about today. And the actual idea for the lesson, this is a bite-sized nugget extracted out of a much larger course called the Ultimate Fretboard Visualization course. This is a 5-hour deep dive that I produced with my good friend Tom Quayle, where we take you through the entire 2-point system of fretboard visualization and why it's so powerful, how to do it systematically, and apply it to your playing. A little bit of a plug there, but if you do get something out of this video and you're intrigued by the ideas and want to take it further, then I'd highly recommend you check out the Ultimate Fretboard Visualization course. There's actually a $50 off discount as well at the moment if you use the code. I will be assuming you have some awareness of intervallic functions, scale degrees, or thinking in intervals on the guitar, but if you don't and you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll leave some links in the description below for you to get up to speed. But very briefly, the basic idea is that we can, let's say, take a scale, and instead of thinking about the note letters, we can replace the letters with generic numbers. So if I was to take a C major scale, say 3-note per string, basic, instead of thinking C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, I could replace that or think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. The reason this is so powerful is that because I can learn to quickly count up from 1 to 3, 1, 2, 3, and then see that this relationship here is 1 to 3. And then I can move that all over the fretboard very easily, and I can do that from another C note, and always be able to quickly find the 1 to 3. Or I could do it from any root note, it could be an A, a B flat, whatever, and always be able to find the relevant 3. Just take one more example before we move on. Let's take a basic cowboy chord of C major. It's also very common for guitar players to recognize that within the details of the chord, here is the root note, the C, and this is the 3. So again, it's quite common knowledge and well practiced to be able to utilize this to find a 3 in this scenario too. So I could go 1 to 3 from any other root note, 1 to 3, 1 to 3. Now, this is great. This is super powerful. It allows us to move around the fretboard and see these relationships. However, the problem is that it's only ever ascending, and people only ever learn it going from the lower note up to the higher note. From the lower note up to the high note. So going ascending from the 1 up to the 3, ascending from the 1 up to the 3. Now, it never fails within lessons of private students or clinics or masterclasses or whatever, when I'm covering this stuff and I go, well, can you do it descending? The vast majority of people, and I put myself in this camp as well many moons ago, just crumble and can't do it. So it's so much harder to be able to see descending to them. So what do I mean by this? Let's take the C up on the 10th fret of the D string here. Now we've got the initial ways we looked at it, going 1 to 3, ascending from the lower up to the intervallic function, and the other way, 1 to 3, ascending from the lower note up to the intervallic function. But it would be so powerful, so expanding to be able to see and hear coming down to the 3. So from this same note we started on, this same root note, but seeing and hearing coming down to the 3. And this is way harder for most guitar players. It's something that guitar players tend to not really see as instantly and aren't able to utilize it in their fretboard cataloging and visualization. If you do practice this, I assure you your fretboard skills will shoot through the roof. So what do I mean exactly? Well, from this note here, I want to be able to see that this is the 3 coming down here, or this is the 3 coming down here. So I could move it around to as the C here. So I'm learning what it looks like and sounds like from the higher note to come down to the intervallic function. Most guitar players are pretty good at ascending with it. We kind of see these relationships in the chords and the scales and the things that we build, because we're used to practicing and thinking in that way. We're used to thinking in a very, we practice that first and foremost and most, we ascend. But it's just as important to practice descending. And what does it look like? What does it sound like to come from a higher note down to this intervallic function or scale degree? And there are so many reasons this is incredibly powerful to have under your belt, because music doesn't always just ascend in pitch, of course. So many beautiful melodic fragments and melodies and lines are all about descending from a starting note. Think about the very famous Ellington there, or the sort of those kind of lines. A lot of horn lines and jazz type melodies, descending melodies are so important to be able to see and hear quickly. And by having these kind of skills on the fretboard with our visualization, greatly aids that kind of line development and fluency of ideas. And it also means that you're not going to be visualizing one direction whilst your line is going in the opposite direction. So of course, if your visualization for finding all these intervals or shapes is always reliant upon the lowest strings going this way, but you're playing a line that is coming this way, there's going to be a natural kind of just hesitancy and kind of a bit of a clash there. And I think that can sort of get in the way of fluency as well. So by always having these localized sort of root notes and then being able to see both directions, what does the interval look like ascending and descending, or where can I find the scale degrees ascending and descending? It's incredibly powerful, and one of the single biggest things to unlocking the fretboard in a deeply, deeply profound way. So we just looked at the regular 3, but imagine that you could do that for all of the remaining other intervallic functions or scale degrees. Then the true power of this starts to open up. It's an incredibly efficient, incredibly powerful way to organize and think about visualizing the fretboard. So this is exactly what Tom and I cover in the Ultimate Fretboard Visualization course. It's a 5-hour deep dive, as I say. We take you through from beginner to advanced, the entire 2-point system in a systematic, organized way, how to learn the system and how to practice and apply it. So yeah, if you want to check that out, like I say, there's $50 off at the moment with the code and linked down below. So what I'm going to do now is set up a bit of a practice session for myself and show you how I go about doing that using the Solo app. Now, the Solo app is a practice tool for working on finding and practicing intervallic functions and chord changes and scales and things, all utilizing and thinking this intervallic way of thinking. So what I'm going to do is look at the interval trainer here, and then maybe just go into choose intervallic functions and select the 3, because that's what we were talking about. And I'm going to have find root first on, which means I have to find the root first. So I get to practice this, what it looks like. I'm then going to choose from a root note. I'm going to choose random. It's going to make it a bit challenging for myself. I'm not going to turn the fretboard on, but I'll show you that later. Now what Solo is going to do is present me with randomized root notes and then ask me to find the 1 and the 3 against each of those root notes. And it's actually listening to me as well, so it's listening for when I get it right, and that's when it will then move on. What you can then do is to force yourself to only find descending intervals. So I'm always going to be working from the higher strings, or certainly descending in pitch to from the 1 to the 3. Okay, so let's do some practice. Of course not super musical, but it's a real stress test as to how quickly you can find the root note and then visualize down from that root note to the interval that we're choosing. And at any point during a practice session, you can swipe to reveal the on-screen fretboard and study where these root notes and intervals fall in any given area of the neck. Now, of course, again, we've just been working with the 3, but you could, from within Solo, choose any of the intervallic functions and practice them, and then it will start cycling and randomizing amongst them. And before you know it, if you work on this a lot, it will radically improve your fretboard visualization. This really is, I think, one of the most transformational exercises and things that you could possibly practice when it comes to extending and developing your fretboard knowledge and your fretboard visualization skills. Because most of us, from the very early doors of learning to play guitar, we get pretty good at kind of seeing and counting up in pitch from a lower note to a note in a scale or a chord. and we can see that pretty quickly and move it around. But it's far fewer of us that can do that in the other direction. And I honestly think that is a crucial part to truly unlocking, in a very fluent way, finding intervals and harmony on the fretboard. So hopefully you found that interesting, useful, and you've got something from it. Bit of a shorter mini lesson, I guess, but I wanted to introduce this as a way of kind of just laying the foundations for a really, really deep and powerful subject. And like I say, if you want to take it further, then do check out that Ultimate Fretboard Visualization course from me and Tom Quayle. And yeah, link is in the description below. If you want to get that $50 off, use the code. You'll also find the links to the Solo app and all of the other stuff that I produce, so my own lessons, my website, Fibonacci guitars, etc. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. If you have enjoyed the video, leave it a like, leave it a thumbs up, maybe subscribe to the channel for more of these kind of videos. And until next time, guys, thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.